Hello and welcome. My name is Sanjay Soni. Here's a microlearning readiness video.
Hi, Sanjay. Thanks for having me. I'm Anna Thomas. I'm an applied data scientist on the Azure data team. And today I hope to show you a little bit more about ML and AI and some of the things we're bringing to 2019.
Awesome. Yeah, I know that SQL Server has had some kind of machine learning capabilities in the past, but what's new?
Yeah, sure. So let's actually take a step back and kind of walk through this evolution of what's happened with SQL Server ML. So maybe about 4 years ago, we acquired a company called Revolution Analytics.
Yes.
And from that came our server, which then got renamed to ML Server. And we said, you know, this is super exciting. So let's bring it into SQL Server. And that's when, in 2016, we came out with ML Services with R, right? And people were really excited about this, but I don't know if you've heard of this language called Python.
Of course.
But people were really excited about Python too, and they said, okay, well, we want Python too. So quickly in 2017, we followed with support for Python and thus formed this, ML services that you see today.
Oh, I see. So what would you do with this, all these services? What kind of in database analytics, and what is it?
Yeah, exactly. Great question. So let's look at what you currently do in machine learning, if you want to do machine learning, right? So you take your data from your applications, and maybe you're storing that in some sort of database. It could be SQL. And then you would move it to your analytics server. And this is where you're doing things like data transformation, exploration, doing your modeling. And once you have your model, then you'll send it off to score it, right?
Of course.
And finally, once you have a model that you like, you'll take in your new data and you'll send it to this scoring service, and then you'll send your predictions back to your applications.
Yes.
So that's kind of a lot of steps, right? And you're having to move your data all over the place. So what we did with SQL Server ML Services is add this ability to make it much simpler, right? So we have our application, and we move our transactions, move our data into our database. And within the database, we're actually able to do all the things that we were doing before without having to move that data. So that really takes down the time and the effort it takes to get these models out the door.
It still seems like you're moving data a lot around, or?
Yeah, well, within database machine learning, that's kind of the big benefit, is that we don't have to move any data.
I see. All right, let's keep going.
Yeah, great. So what we really want to show you and what I want to talk about today is how SQL ML Services allows you to kind of do the whole life cycle of machine learning. Something we came up with in another org is the team data science process. And so we can really go through the whole team data science process, from exploring our data and visualizing in the various tools we like to use, whether it's with R, Python, T-SQL, and we'll show some new stuff in a bit. And then we can train our models there as well. And once we have a model that we're happy with, we can deploy it, and we can push it to our apps so we can share and we can consume it. And really, you'll see this is a cycle, because machine learning and app development is cyclical. And as we get new data in, we want to be able to explore it and train it and deploy new models. And again, it's all in SQL, so it just makes it much easier.
Of course. So what about security then?
Yes, so that's something interesting, and that's definitely a question we get a lot.
That's the reason, right? DBAs are scared. Okay, you're running R and Python in my database, so what's up with my security?
Right, yeah, so that's a great question. And actually, if we talk about how this works, we're not actually running R and Python. Your programs or your data scientist programs aren't in the DBA's SQL engine, right?
Okay.
We use this thing called a launchpad, and the launchpad is able to launch satellites. So you see kind of the theme we went with, but they're able to launch these satellite programs that might have R or Python in them. And it's able to get the data from SQL Server without moving it.
Oh, I see. All right. So, how about like the TDS connection and all the data movement?
Right, yes. And this is a big concern. So it's actually not getting the data through TDS, but a separate line of connection. So if my R program blows up, it's not going to blow up our SQL Server.
I see. All right, so I've heard about Java. You're using Java as well?
Yes, we are using Java, and we will. I've got some cool stuff that I'm working on, some ideas that I hope you all can help me with as well, that we'll show in a bit. But I would want to dig in and kind of show you this ML services with Python.
Yeah, let's do the live demos, as many as we have a lot of time, so take your time for the demos.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Okay. So the scenario we're dealing with here is wine quality. So I came up with a scenario, Contoso Wines. And they're a shop, and they curate all their wines, they make sure they have good qualities, they test them, and they've been collecting this data for a long time. And now they're expanding, and they want to be able to not use all those people and not have to hire more people to do this, right? So they came to us and said, what can you do for us? And we said, okay, well, what we could do is we could potentially develop a program that could predict the quality of wine. And then based on that number quality, we could decide if we want to stock it in our shop or not. Okay. So they were pretty excited about that. So I won't run through this whole notebook. Yeah. And this is a Jupyter notebook for those of you who haven't seen them before. It's kind of one of the preferred IDEs for Python development and some other languages. And I've got some other exciting stuff that I get to show later today. But let's kind of look at what you could do, right? And
so this is the Jupyter notebook.
Yes, this is a Jupyter notebook, and what we're really leveraging here is the Revoscale packages, and these come in R and Python, and it basically allows you to kind of do analytics at scale. So you'll see if you're a Python developer, really the biggest thing here is learning to wrap your code into a function. So we can do lots of things here. We can look at some of our data. But what I want to show you, we'll skip around. But again, I'm going to share all of this is in our SQL Workshops repository. So if you actually want to go try this code out yourself or get set up with Python and ML services, you can definitely do that. But here, what you see is I'm pulling in some Python code that creates a histogram, right? Because we might want to see, what's the distribution of different wine qualities, and does it change based on color of wine? So I was able to wrap this in a function, and from there we can use this rxexec functions. And this is really the magic behind Revoscale and doing in-database analytics, because we're basically saying here that we want to execute this function compare wines on our red and white data sets, and we're setting the compute context of SQL compute context. And so when we say that, what we're saying is, I want you to do this in the database, right? So we want to use the compute context of SQL Server. So you can see we get these nice visualizations where we can analyze the distributions, and this is just a lot easier to do here than it might be to do in SQL Server. So really with ML services and some of the stuff I'll show later, we're just trying to make it so that you can do things in the way that makes sense.
All right.
Cool. So once we've analyzed or explored our data a little bit, and like I said, I'll skip through some of these, but you can check them out. We might be ready to make a model, train a model. So we can start by using the packages in sklearn that many developers and data scientists know and love.
Of course.
To create our training and our testing data sets, right? And once we have that, we can use either the built-in packages. So you can see here I'm using a Revoscale package from Microsoft ML, but I could use any machine learning package supported in Python that I like. I just wrap it in that rxexec function. So here again, we're setting the compute context as SQL compute context, and we're creating that model. Now, once we have a model, the next thing we want to do is kind of predict on some unseen data and see how it's doing. And so we can see here that just a simple model that I just trained in a few seconds is able to predict pretty well. So here in this quality column, you're seeing the actual quality score in the data set. And then in the score column, you're seeing our prediction from our model. And so you can see, it's pretty good after just being, one model. And we'd want to train this on multiple models, try to find the best model. But just for purposes of time, I want to show you, once you get a model that you like, what you want to do is wrap it in a stored procedure that you can call from SQL Server, right? And so this used to be kind of a cumbersome process, especially if you aren't a T-SQL developer. But we've come up with this package called SQL ML Utils, and that's making my life and data scientist life much easier, because what it does is it takes one of those functions that I created and it wraps it in a stored procedure for me. So for example, here I've created this function, train model stored procedure. And you can see I just wrapped my code in it for creating that model. And I gave it a name. And then I went ahead and said, create stored procedure from function. So what this does, and it kind of gives you an anticlimactic response of true. But what this does, if I switch over to SSMS and I go into my stored procedures, I can actually see that it's created this stored procedure for me, right? So I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to touch SSMS or really get into that. And now my DBA has it and can use it when they want.
I see. So nice use of SQL Management Studio along with the Jupyter notebooks and being able to use them together in a way.
Exactly, yeah. And if you are, more familiar with T-SQL, that we know a lot of us are, you can actually do this all from within SSMS as well. So you can see here I'm splitting my training and testing data, and then I'm going through that same process and I'm just wrapping my Python code in the stored procedure. So it's really cool, and we really want to make this accessible to everyone, right?
I see. So what did this model predict in terms of wine?
Oh, well, it was interesting because what we really were able to find is that, we thought that alcohol percentage would lead to maybe that would be a big factor. And it turns out it was a big factor, but really it wasn't a huge factor. More alcohol in your wine didn't necessarily lead to a better wine.
I see. So probably it's the location in Napa Valley where
yeah, exactly, yeah.
Okay, cool. Anything else you want to show in the demo?
No, that's this one, and we've got some exciting stuff coming in the next section that we're going to get into.
Thank you so much so far. So Anna, I know we talk about ML services overall, but what's new in terms of SQL Server 2019?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think maybe Bob gave it away a little bit earlier, but it's really exciting what we're doing. We have this SQL ML Services, right? And it's really been kind of geared towards data scientists or data developers, data engineers. But what if there's just something that's easier to do not in T-SQL, right? And so that's kind of where we came up with this idea of extensibility, right? And the first language we're introducing is Java, and this is new to 2019, and we're really excited about this.
Yeah, because I heard about R, Python, Java in the context of SQL Server. Just what was the?
Yeah, great. And that's a question we get too is, why did you pick Java? There are lots of languages. We've been hearing a lot of, mumbles about .NET and other languages that people like. But really, Java is still, one of the most popular languages. It's been around for a long time. And really, you can do a lot of things with it. So that was kind of our idea behind Java. But you can see that, kind of with this extensibility framework, that maybe in the future, I can't say anything, but maybe we've opened the doors to something else.
I see. I think developers will really like all this. So.
Yeah, I think so too. And I'm really excited. I got some cool stuff of how we can, actually use AI with this. And just, kind of how it works, right? Is it's the same functionality that we're using for R and Python. Now you can use your Java. You do have to compile it before, but I'll kind of show how to do that.
All right, so I think you prepared something cool to show us.
Yeah. So I had some cool stuff to show you. Let's see. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with Azure Data Studio, which is another cool tool that you can use to work with data. SSMS isn't going away, as you saw. I was running my Python code in SSMS. But with Azure Data Studio, you can run it cross-platform. So I'm actually also running Azure Data Studio at home on my Mac. So it just really opens the door to develop, again, kind of this theme we're going to develop, on whatever platform you want, be it Linux or Windows or whatever, and with the tools that you want. So here what you can see is I've got my connections here. So I've got my connections to my big data clusters, and I've also got my connections to Linux. So I've got SQL in RHEL and also SQL in Ubuntu. And if I close out of this, you might see something, you might have seen this before, but this is actually a SQL kernel in a Jupyter Notebook. And this has never been done before, so this is like very exciting. Personally, I'm super excited about this SQL kernel because what that allows me to do and what it allows all of the T-SQL folk to do is actually wrap T-SQL and text together. So you'll kind of see how that works. So I'm connected to my Ubuntu SQL Server. And you can see what I've got is I've got these cells that have text, and then I've also got code cells. So this is good old-fashioned T-SQL, and when I run that, you can see I'm connected to wide world importers. And wide world importers is kind of an example that we use for a lot of things. And in this case, wide world importers has a lot of review data. And we want to kind of analyze that review data and see if we can get anything out of that review data. Okay. And so we'll kind of take a look at that. Now, before we get into that, let's just back up, and we talked about Java. And so I want to show you how you can call Java from SQL, right? Now, another interesting use case for a company like Wide World Importers, and I think a lot of other companies, especially with GDPR and security being a thing, is identifying personally identifiable information, or PII data. And so here, what you see is I've created this little dummy table that pulls in some data, and you'll notice that some of this text has Social Security type numbers in it.
That's sensitive info.
Yeah, exactly, sensitive info. And so what I did is I created a Java program that can do regular expression analysis. And this is not something that's currently easy to do in T-SQL, right? So again, just this idea of doing things that are easy in the language that they're easy to do. So I was very quickly able to create a regular expression
Basically,
program.
using the right tool for the right task.
Exactly, using the right tool for the right job. So here I'm calling where my regular expression is compiled, that program is compiled, and you can see I'm just putting in the regular expression. So if you're not familiar, typically we have 3 digits followed by a dash, followed by 2 digits, followed by a dash, followed by 4 digits, right? And here we're using the SP execute external script, which is basically how we're able to call R or Python, and here how we're calling Java. I'm specifying the exact function, and then basically we're able to get those results. So what you'll see, okay, here we go, is we've only returned those cells that have Social Security numbers in it. So this is really cool. This was very easy to do, and we can do that from Java, right? So I've kind of been thinking myself, okay, so this kind of opens the doors. Yeah. What else could I do? And before I was in the Azure data team, I was actually working in Azure AI engineering.
I see.
And so I was working a lot with cognitive services, which is basically, Microsoft Research has been working on these APIs or these algorithms for a long time to do things like face recognition, to do language understanding, natural language processing, language detection, speech to text. They're doing all these cool things. Yes. And I said, well, I got a lot of data. Can I leverage these tools in SQL Server? And Java is actually making that much easier for me. So what I was able to do is pull down a sample, and this sample basically takes in various text strings. It could be, commentary. In this case, with Wide World Importers, like I said, they have a lot of reviews. So I might want to analyze, what's the sentiment of that. So I created this little program in Java, and you can see what it does is it returns the sentiment for each value, right? So I hate you got a very low sentiment score, and everything is fine got a high sentiment score, so that sort of thing. So I compiled this program, threw it in my Linux box, and now I'm going to call it from Azure Data Studio on my SQL Server data.
Wow, that's magical. So can you use this with audio, video, vision APIs?
Yes, yeah, of course. If you have data in SQL Server, I know some people store images in file tables. Yeah. You could totally call the computer vision API and get a caption, maybe even custom vision, and get some object detection related to a specific use case. This just really opens the door, so it's really exciting, and I'm personally really excited to see what you all build with this. So if we head back to Azure Data Studio, we can just take a look at some of those reviews that we're going to analyze, right? So we've got I just pulled 25, and
25? Is it positive or negative?
Yeah. So here you can see now I'm calling my sentiment program that I've got compiled in a jar file, and I'm calling it on that data. Now, if you actually head out to our SQL Workshop site and check out this repository, what you can see is a typical issue that might come with this is, Anna, I don't want to send all of my data out to the internet and hit that API to get the results back, right? Like, is there a way I can do this locally? And you can actually run your cognitive services in a container and call it from SQL Server, so it's all running locally. So this is really exciting stuff. So I encourage you guys to check it out and give us feedback, because this is something kind of new that I've been playing with, and we're interested to see what you guys can do with it. But you can see how opening this extensibility door can really open lots of opportunities for things to do with data that you already have, right? So it's really exciting stuff. There's lots of cognitive services out there to try. We're actually Buck and I are working on a project where you get delivery notes. Perhaps you have some sort of delivery service and they leave notes like, this should be delivered on Tuesday by 9 p.m. in Atlanta. Now, we could create a LUIS model, which is our Language Understanding Intelligence Service.
LUIS.
Yeah, LUIS, yeah. So we could create a LUIS model that can parse out all of that data from SQL and actually pull out, they said they want it delivered on Tuesday at 9 a.m. and even the location. So LUIS can actually pull out that information for you and do that as well. So lots of exciting stuff that we've got coming down the pipeline. Really excited to see what you guys are doing in Java. Yeah.
It's really exciting. I mean, I've been associated with SQL Server for a long time. It's amazing what we can do now with AI, ML, with SQL Server, Spark, everything coming together, isn't it?
Yeah, everything's coming together, and I think the interesting point is, we're not all data scientists, and so we can kind of ease into this, right? So cognitive services allows us to just basically call an API and infuse AI into our data applications, which is really interesting. And then you can kind of step into this next step of doing machine learning and data engineering with R and Python. And then even when your data gets really, really big, right, and we start moving into the big data clusters like Buck was talking about, we have something for you to do there as well.
Awesome. So you showed some good code today. How can folks learn more about this? Where can they go?
Yeah, great question. So you can access all of our workshops at aka.ms SQL workshops. And here we have resources from full-day courses on machine learning. If you want to start learning R or Python, we've got those courses available for the data professional. So really, like I said, we want to meet you wherever you are in your learning journey and make it so that you can get more out of SQL Server.
Awesome. Thank you so much for all this great information.
Yeah, of course. I'm excited to be here and excited to see what you guys end up doing. And please, reach out to us and let us know what you are doing, and especially if it's exciting.
Awesome. Thank you for watching this video. Learn more about this and other topics at azure.com/SQLDW.